For 30 years, millions believed they were climbing better jobs, bigger homes, rising salaries, expanding cities. A generation moved from bicycles to cars, from factory floors to office towers, from survival to stability. It felt unstoppable. It felt earned. It felt permanent. But what if the climb was engineered? What if the system that lifted the middle class that was never designed to let it move freely, that only safely? And what happens that when the design begins to strain? Because China didn't just grow a middle class, it built one, deliberately, strategically, and carefully. And now, that design is being tested. China's old growth system was engineered for speed, scale, and survival. It was not elegant. It was urgent, disciplined, and relentlessly forward-moving. Growth came from factories, ports, highways, and endless housing projects. Not households. Investment-led. Exports followed. Consumption waited quietly behind production. Local governments borrowed aggressively to build. Banks funded expansion without hesitation. Land sales generated revenue. Property became both momentum machine and financial collateral. Cheap labor and predictable costs anchored competitiveness. Steel, cement, infrastructure, and disciplined workers moved in coordination, absorbing millions into expanding industrial ecosystems. Stability mattered more than efficiency. Coordination mattered more than choice. The system prioritized order, employment absorption, and uninterrupted expansion above individual flexibility. This model delivered dominance and decades of growth. But it was never built to mature gracefully. It was built to transform poverty into power quickly. The old system is weakening. Its advantages are exhausted. Infrastructure no longer produces miracles. Roads, bridges, and cities cost more than they deliver in returns. New highways, urban expansions, and construction accumulate debt faster than productivity can absorb. Property, once an accelerator, now ties growth to fragile, risky balance sheets. The labor advantage is fading. The workforce ages and shrinks. Cheap labor is no longer abundant, limiting the system's ability to expand as before. External demand falters. Trade tensions, reshoring, and geopolitical risks reduce certainty. Exports no longer guarantee growth. The old system's stability depends on a fragile global order. Local governments carry heavy liabilities. Investment crowds itself out. Excess capacity grows instead of momentum. The acceleration engine is slowing under its own weight. Each growth unit requires more credit, coordination, and intervention. The system has reached its limits. Replacement is inevitable, not by desire, but by arithmetic and circumstances. Replacement does not mean tearing down the old system. It shifts the center of gravity. Investment continues, but its dominance declines while control adapts to new priorities. The state moves from endless construction to carefully managing outcomes. Growth slows deliberately. Efficiency replaces sheer volume. Risk management replaces acceleration. Stability becomes the metric, not speed. Success is now measured by employment quality, technological capability, and resilience. Households matter more, but they remain guided. Markets operate within boundaries under state coordination and subtle guidance. External observers often misread China. There is no sudden reform or collapse. Change is calibration, subtle but profound, shifting focus from expansion to durability and long-term stability. Replacement occurs through reweighting sectors, redirecting credit, and redefining acceptable growth. Investments are channeled strategically. The old growth engine slows, giving way to a guided, balanced approach. The emotional transformation is subtle but deep, from chasing rapid expansion to protecting system durability. Understanding this logic prevents false expectations of sudden liberalization or collapse. The replacement system is layered, not a single engine. Advanced manufacturing moves up the value chain, while technology becomes a strategic necessity, shaping national priorities and competitiveness. Domestic consumption is encouraged carefully. Savings culture and high housing costs constrain spending. The state nudges households toward stability while slowly expanding internal demand without destabilizing the economy. Services expand to absorb labor and raise productivity. Jobs grow in non-industrial sectors, increasing efficiency without causing sudden wage inflation or disrupting prices in the broader economy. Energy, logistics, and industrial security gain priority. Capital flows toward strategic sectors, not broad stimulus. The state guides innovation deliberately, ensuring progress without leaving gaps or risking systemic shocks. Replacement is uneven and gradual. Skilled urban workers and strategic firms benefit first. Growth becomes quieter, less visible, less explosive, but designed to last and endure structurally. The system adapts China's economic DNA for endurance. Coherence, resilience, and continuity are prioritized, accepting slower progress as the cost of long-term stability and national strength. At the center of China's transition sits the household question. Families historically absorbed risk through savings, housing, and self-reliance, stabilizing society but limiting spending and consumption growth. Replacing the old system requires households to play a larger role without triggering instability. Higher wages raise costs, while lower savings weaken financial buffers for families. Social services expand gradually. Income growth is selective. Consumption is encouraged cautiously, ensuring households gain confidence without destabilizing markets or creating unsustainable debt pressures in a fragile economy. Housing remains central because it anchors both wealth and confidence. If households feel insecure, they retreat. If over-leveraged, spending contracts, slowing economic adaptation and system trust. The system must rebuild household trust without surrendering control. Reform appears slow externally, but China prioritizes predictability and measured change to maintain stability and long-term confidence. The replacement system's success depends less on stimulus and more on families believing stability will persist while expectations rise, guiding cautious growth and sustained societal order. As the system evolves, power does not vanish. It repositions strategically. Central control remains essential, guiding outcomes while adapting to new pressures without surrendering authority or systemic stability. Flexibility becomes a survival tool. Policymakers allow experimentation within limits, letting local variation occur without threatening the broader system or creating unpredictable risks in governance. Regulation tightens in some areas and loosens in others. This selective control often confuses outsiders expecting linear reform, but it preserves coherence while managing complexity strategically. China is not choosing between state and market. It blends them differently at each stage, using authority to compress risk, smooth shocks, and manage outcomes effectively. Flexibility exists, but conditional. When volatility rises, control intensifies. When stability holds, space expands. This adaptive governance ensures continuity while navigating uncertainty internally and externally. The goal is not freedom maximization, but failure avoidance. Sudden interventions, reversals, and recalibrations are system features designed to bend without breaking under pressure. The transition unfolds under global pressure. Technology restrictions, trade fragmentation, and rising competition compress China's margin for error in an increasingly uncertain international environment. Time becomes strategic. Moving too slowly risks stagnation. Moving too quickly risks instability. Every adjustment must balance urgency against structural endurance carefully. China cannot isolate without shrinking economically. It cannot depend without exposure to shocks. This tension shapes diversification, redundancy, and cautious global engagement strategies. Growth targets soften, but survival targets harden. Resilience replaces domination as the defining narrative shaping economic and geopolitical decision-making priorities internally. Global cycles are treated as shocks to absorb, not waves to ride. The system prepares for volatility rather than chasing temporary expansion opportunities. When uncertainty rises, continuity becomes priority. Progress continues, but it is subordinated to preservation, ensuring the system survives pressure before pursuing ambition. China's direction is not mystery. It is continuity under constraint. The old system lifted the nation. The replacement system must now sustain it. Growth becomes steadier, less dramatic, and more internally managed. Expectations are reset quietly as competence replaces speed and resilience replaces spectacular expansion. This does not mean stagnation. It means controlled evolution, where avoiding crisis matters more than chasing miracles or repeating extraordinary past performance. Success will look quieter. Fewer headlines, fewer surges, fewer shocks. Stability becomes achievement, even if it lacks the excitement of rapid acceleration. China is not transitioning toward another country's model. It is deepening its own logic, adapting carefully while preserving institutional continuity. The replacement is already underway, uneven and cautious. It will reveal itself over time through what China prevents as much as what it achieves.